handout proposes 8 forms of capital, and there's 2 of them that I want to talk about now. And during the walk, you can reflect and think about these 2 forms of capital, especially the first one, which is natural capital, which is the wealth that comes from nature, which like clean air and clean water. Without those, arguably, we can't exist, so it's really difficult to put a value on something like air and water because you could argue that it's infinite. And the other one is cultural capital. So it's the value that comes from the knowledge of which plants we derive medicine from, or how do we store grains in this climate so we can use them during the winter, and how do we process them to make tortillas. And so it's this knowledge that comes from generations back, and that we find in places that have been able to maintain and preserve their culture through history and through challenges and trials and tribulations. And right now we're in a place that, though maybe under like standard numbers of financial capital, is not the highest, but the cultural capital and the natural capital are off the charts. And so, thinking about the 3 enterprises we're talking about, first the ecotourism enterprise, then the sustainable forestry enterprise, and thirdly the water enterprise. In one sense or another, all of them derive most of their value, or a large amount of their value, from the forest, from the nature, from the ecosystem. And as we walk through it, my reflection is that it feels like almost pristine, like they're not really touching it, they're not really extracting from it. And the concept of a regenerative enterprise, the word regenerate means to add to. So if you imagine like a pool, like different pools of capital, each pool, like the pool of water is very literal, right? Like as you saw, they were planting trees around the well, the spring yesterday, so the pool could grow. And the pool of water is literally the wealth that turns into financial wealth through the water industry. And the forest, as they grow it, and as it gets more and more mature each year, even though they're taking and extracting from it in different ways, the kind of base value of the natural capital of the forest is actually increasing. And in terms of the ecotourism, the same, right? As they keep developing the forest, as they keep developing their capacity, they're actually increasing the pool of capital. And the people here are very connected to their kind of source, like their supply chain, right? They're right here, they live in it. And so when there's a imbalance in it, whatever it may be, from the water company, if they're taking too much water, from the timber company, if they're cutting too much, from the ecotourism company, if they're bringing in too many people and it's consuming water and there's trash everywhere, then they can really sense it right away. And these enterprises are an example of a supply chain where the people that are part owners, and in a way it's a very rare structure in that all the community is like micro owners of these enterprises, and they're all really connected to the supply chain. And so yeah, I want to just ask you guys to reflect on all of that, and how is the relationship between the people, the forest, the water, and all of those relationships that make up this kind of collection of regenerative enterprises, because we're talking about 3 of them and not one. And what are things that we can take from this model, from this example, that can be applied elsewhere?